to introduce our team, we have two team members who unfortunately aren't able to join us this evening. One is Ella Clarke. She's having Zoom issues, unfortunately, in the classic way that things happen. So she would be here if she could, but Zoom is refusing to let it join us, so we can blame a large international
and she said she dropped her phone into a puddle today, and that's probably partly the
probably part of the problem. And Jonny, Jonny Hibbs, who was also one of our young dancers in the project, because he's just started at London School of Contemporary.
No, London
Studios.
London Studio Centre. I knew I was going to get that wrong. London Studio Centre, and literally went down about a week ago. No, he started on Monday, so he's actually in class, which is a fair enough reason not to be able to be here. The third dancer who was part of this brilliant project is Ellie Mcpherson, who's on the screen here. Yay! Thank you for waving at the opportune moment. We brought together a crack team to work on this. We had Harry here, who's in person.
Hello.
Harry Scott. And Daisy Harrison. I'm still learning everyone's surnames, and I'm having a small panic. I'm going to get everyone's surnames wrong. So far, I've actually got them right, but I'm having a panic. Daisy, who's up here on the screen. Perfect, thank you. Who've been working with the young dancers throughout lockdown and throughout the summer, in both a mix of analogue and digital, helping them think about their choreographic voice and how they create and how we create in isolation, and what's it like to be a dancer when you can't be in a room together, and what could be made as a result. And so they've been absolutely extraordinary facilitators on this. We also have, on the screen here, we have Zack up here in the in a hi-fi room of extraordinariness. So Zack has been the visual digital artist who's been working with us and is part of the new direction we're going in with the Barbican, which very much comes from my passions. I'm just going to admit that right now. Which is not what today is about. That's next week. If you want to find out more about that, come to next week. Hey. We also have Dan Martin here, who we've worked with hugely in the past. He's a fantastic filmmaker. So he was working with the young people, looking at everything from how you develop your choreography for film, how you think about shots, how you think about the process behind it, and then of course it's the eyes behind the camera that has made such a beautiful piece that we're about to see. And then we have the rest of the Barbican team. So I've introduced myself, I've said too much already. We also have the fabulous Suzie West. So Suzie has previously been leading on what we've called Fuse, which is all of our dance programming. She's now the co-lead on the ReBels. Between the two of us, we're coming up with far too many plans. It's going to be great. So it's going to be a good year.
Dangerous mix.
It's a really dangerous mix. It's fabulous. We also have Jamie Smith over here, who some of you will have met before. He is our technical and production manager, and is all of that and more, you know. And we also have Nathan Benjamin here as well, who's doing camera feed for us, but works with us a lot as one of our technicians, but has also been doing some of our playground events with us around and about, which some of you guys have been involved with as well. That's a very long-winded introduction to the team. But what we're really excited to do is I'm going to hand over to
the film.
To the film. It is just straight to the film. Okay. Co-created by the team of the Digital ReBels, this young collective choreographed content and designed with the digital and visual artist Zack Walker, filmmaker Dan Martin, practitioners Daisy Harrison and Harry Scott, and producers Laura Kriefman and Suzie West. They used dance and technology to explore memories of their bodies in isolation, and it was a combination of a digital and analog creative process whilst locked away from each other. And this is the butterfly effect.
We're going to show it at the end as well, because it's really nice to watch it a second time. And I've seen, that's the third time I've seen the final cut, and I'm already still picking out things that I didn't spot the first time round. We'd like to sort of talk a little bit more about what we've seen now. Have you got a question to the audience? Or?
I think it's just a really nice open one about kind of like, what's that like as something to watch as a starting point?
Would anyone like to tell us what they thought, how they felt when they watched it?
I became quite hypnotised by it. And I think it's the layers and layers and layers, and you're trying to follow something through and then something else takes you, and it's disorienting in a good way.
When you watch it, you feel like you're ready to do a lot of things, like you get a lot of energy.
Did anyone feel something totally different or think anything totally different when they were watching it?
It's quite easy to get lost in, like just find yourself lost and like not entirely paying attention but managing to take everything in at the same time.
I think you finished too soon.
I had that moment just then. I was just like, oh, cool, we're just getting going. And I was like, oh no, we're finished. Oh. Yeah. I hope that's a good sensation. You're like left wanting more is always the the goal, isn't it?
Hypnotising, mesmerising, you get lost in it, over too soon. Energising is a word.
Yeah.
Great. I wonder, it would be interesting to talk to Ellie in a little while about whether any of those sensations were ones that Ellie had and were the starting points of any of the movement content or not. I wonder if we could maybe talk about that. That would be really interesting. Ellie, do you have any thoughts on that? Those words that were given to us just then, did they connect in any way to how you felt when you were dancing?
Definitely the way I felt when we were dancing, when we were filming, the whole experience was very surreal, almost. I think we used the word trippy quite a few times. That's definitely, they definitely resonate with how the day went.
Anyone else wants to add to that on the celebrity squares behind? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So am I right in thinking that the piece was made in isolation, and then you came together for a day to film and capture the essence of it?
Yeah, we did have a couple of predominantly online workshops with Zack and Dan, and also a Bacani pickup. We kind of came from like a choreographic movement place, but then as we kind of came into September, we began to meet up. We did like a location, because we did also do some filming outside. Some of it has worked its way in, but the auditorium and stuff kind of came out a lot stronger. But yeah, so we met up. I think it was just the one day really to kind of like bring together all the young people's kind of individual movement journeys into the same space, and then the filming day. So yeah.
Great. And I think we should bring Zack in on this as well, because I think one of the things that I came in the middle of the afternoon because we were in the middle of 82 other things, and probably it was one of my favourite moments of walking into an auditorium when a project is being created, because at that point in time Zack was basically standing somewhere towards the back of the room, and Jonny, and I think it might have been Ellie at the time, were behind the control desk and were controlling all the colours on the visuals and everything that was happening with the lights, which was creating that kind of like changing sequencing and creating that reflectioning. And I think either you or Daisy were on the camera and were controlling the shots that we were catching, which creates those memories. And then another member of the team is dancing and responding to that, and somebody else was feeding in ideas to help with the improvisation and to allow the movement to grow. And when I've worked dances on kind of like interactive movement work for donkey's years, and it normally takes me about 2 years after somebody's come out of training to get them to that point of ease, of being that collaborative, that open, that responsive to each other. And these guys have been in here with the kit for about maybe 2 hours, Zack, was it?
Yeah, by the time we got started, probably about 2 hours.
I mean, and that's extraordinary, and it was so exciting as a thing to see.
So let's let Zack have a bit of an introduction then, to tell us a little bit what your one day was like with our ReBels, and then you can carry on with the discussion from there. What was it like?
I've only gotten to make art properly since the world has turned upside down maybe 3 times, I think. And those were definitely by myself in most cases, and then very small amounts with other people. So it's the reason why I do what I do. It made me feel so full of joy and happiness, and it's like blood flowing for the first time after 2 months of it not, in a sense. It was very much I should be in a dark space with lights and video cameras and people moving around, and that's my natural sort of desire in a lot of places with music. So it was so easy, I guess, to create something with this group of people that was wonderful straight away. It didn't take very long for people to just get on with making it and not feel uncomfortable about whether or not they should or how they should do it or which way it worked. I think the team was so, as Laura pointed out, and as I was, whenever I can create a space where I get to sit back and watch it, it's pretty special, because I love making things with people, but I love creating situations where other people get to make things as well. That's part of my practice and a really strong part of it. So the day was just fabulous. I even got to have a little skateboard before the session, which is one of my other passions. So I got to roll around the city on a skateboard and look at things. So yeah, it was a wonderful day. It was one of the best days of my year, if not the top so far, because it also wasn't very stressful. I don't think I didn't feel very stressed. By the time we stopped it and got to Laura's house and sat down, I then realized how tired I was, which is usually the case. But yeah, it was. I couldn't say, I said it the whole day, and I try to say these things as much as possible, as I was so impressed by everybody's capabilities, and more so by their lack of inhibitions, to just get involved and try things out and not worry. It was so much people just figuring it out themselves, and me giving them a tiny bit of instruction at the beginning. And it's wonderful to work with people like that. It's wonderful to collaborate. I felt the whole project from the beginning, I kind of worded it in that I'm not going to lead you guys on like some workshop. We're just going to make stuff and collaborate together, because that's just what I'd rather be doing. And I feel that's the best way of learning, and how I've learned most of what I've ever done is just by people insisting I do it. So I sort of insist now the same way around.
Thank you, Zack. Thank you, Zack. Has anyone got any questions about the technology that was used in the film, or about Zack's process?
I do, because the one thing you haven't told anybody here, Zack, is the beginning, middle, end of it. So what were we using in the room with the young people, and what was it doing?
I was speaking to Laura and Suzie about another project earlier, and I sort of mentioned what I'm really interested in is using old technology and new technology at the same time, and how those two have so much to complement each other. Video feedback is just, it's like in terms of music, it's like Jimi Hendrix playing the guitar and feeding it back. Like what that sound did to rock and roll and music is what I feel like feedback as an essential sort of effect does for video. It is so enjoyable to watch and to be a part of, because all you're doing is pointing a camera at either a TV or a projection screen that is got the signal from the camera. So you're filming the thing that you're filming, the thing that you're filming, the thing that you're filming. And when you move dancers into that space, it just becomes this wonderful, it's about movement, light, and kind of speed, I guess, or camera angles, but it's so simple, and it's so incredible. So we had that camera set up next to a projector on the screen that you're watching right now, that I'm on at the moment. So it's a very large screen, and then I set up some LED lights that you can choose the color, and used a really simple video of a line going across a video screen. So a colored line that you could choose the thickness of, so how wide it was, and what color it was, and what speed it went. And those are the only variables they had to work with. And they were on a knob and a fader, and they could pick a color on a touchpad on a computer. So that's all there was. There was a camera, a projector, and a light moving at a particular speed, a particular color, and how much of it. And I think that when you use technology and don't try to overdo it, you just pick the elements that are really effective and are really visceral, almost like it's something that you can feel. And when those lights were moving, how fast they were moving, Ellie, Ella, and Jonny all really tuned in to the movement of the dancers, each other dancing, and also the colors that they felt through the music, and that all just happened, and it just was so beautiful to watch. And then Harry and Daisy, I was so like, they were so excited to use the camera and to do the camera work. So I was on it for like the first hour, and then they took over for the next 4 or 5, maybe possibly 6. But I was trying to show them again the basics of how it works, but they just intuitively like played. They were happy enough to be curious and play, that those movements they had with the camera, which is where you get the effect of 1,000 versions of someone, or you get a really overexposed version of someone if you stay on for too long, then you have to kind of pull out again. It's a process of playing. It's a process of playing with it, and kind of learning when the music and therefore the dancer is going to move in a certain way, and when you need to pull out, when you need to go left or right. So I don't know if that's sort of explaining it enough, but it's light, movement, and color, really, with really basic technology. I mean, I say basic, there's a lot of really boring hooking it up and making it work business, but now I've got that down pretty quick. But the actual tools they were using were 2 knobs, a touchpad, and a camera. So to me, that's quite basic.
And the other key ingredient, it feels like, is just that having that opportunity to play, and not maybe learning about all the details of the tech, just like intuitively working things out by doing it, which I know dancers do sort of automatically. It's the way the way I learn as a dancer is through just sort of messing around with stuff. And I wonder if that's sort of been the key ingredient to this project in some ways, sort of that playfulness and encouraging some curiosity. I don't know how you feel about that, Harry or Daisy, in terms of process.
Yeah. Are you going to say something? Yeah.
Daisy, if you go first.
I was just going to say that I think a massive part of what I enjoyed so much about this project was in the experimenting and in the actual doing. Like, I feel like that's where the magic happens. It's in the making things happen. It's in the getting in the space together and being like, these things that we've imagined and gone around in circles talking about, like actually making it happen and doing the problem solving. That's the magic for me. It's the best way to work, is the just like, let's figure it out together.
Great, thank you, Daisy. Harry, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's kind of it. I mean, yeah, I think it was one of those processes where it came from a massive place of not knowing for a very, very, very long time. Because it started back in May.
Yep.
And for a long time it was just like total freedom, and anything is possible, any direction is kind of a direction that we can take. And so trying to refine that from kind of like from all the way out here to where we ended up, and to somewhere that I think everybody collectively had their say, and everyone was kind of happy and excited by it. Like, right at the beginning of the project, I didn't think that I would be as excited about it as I was by the day we were filming it. We were all like, we were screaming. We were like, oh my god, like what? It was the energy in the room was just like, oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So great.
It was probably the pure joy of actually having people back in the
Yeah,
theatre as well.
that as well. Yeah.
That was such a nice,
Like,
refreshing
yeah.
thing. I wondered if I could pass over to Ellie now, just to talk to us a little bit about your experience as one of the digital rebels. So Harry's introduced sort of how this came about. We started in May. It was a bunch of us saying online in lockdown, what kind of thing do you want to make? Would you be able to talk us through sort of your journey through this project a bit, please?
Yeah, definitely. Very similar to what Harry was saying, actually. I've written a few notes, and the one thing I remember from the first month at least is all we knew we wanted was to create a film that stood on its own, that wasn't like a dance film. It wasn't, because we'd done a dance film that was just us dancing, and it was beautiful. We wanted to create something new, something arty, and especially during lockdown, when quite a lot of new digital art and creation was coming out, we wanted to create something separate, and that was really difficult, but that's all we knew. That we just knew that we wanted to do something different. And then we spoke to Laura, and she said, well, you can do whatever you like. Here's all of the options possible. And then we went, oh, what about this, and this, and this, and this, for at least a month. Sat with all these ideas, like, okay, they're all nice, they're all good. What now? Like, which one do we choose? We had so many, so it was fun to explore them all. And then we had an amazing workshop with Picani Pickup, and so our movement started coming in. So we thought more about how we could use the movement to work with the tech, and that was when we narrowed it down to projection. And that's where Zack came in, and so that was super fun to think about, and then completely wild to see in person. That was probably the best part about the project, was seeing it come to life. As much as we'd imagined that we could have whatever we wanted, we hadn't actually, speaking just from me, I hadn't thought that we could actually have whatever we wanted. And then we came to the day and it was like, oh, this is exactly what we wanted. We got it. It's all like, it's massive and it's amazing. So it was super fun, actually. Yeah, so that's about it.
Thank you. That's not just it. That's a really great description.
Thank you. That's not just it. That's a really great description. Thank you. I'm going to pass over to Daisy and then Harry now, just to talk a little bit about sort of what your role was in the project, because it's quite different to how we would normally work, where perhaps we go, right, we're going to do this project with these young people. This is the set date and time and the deadline. We know we're going to work with this person. None of that was written at the beginning, and it was just a case of getting onto a Zoom call with some young people every week and going, what do we do? So I wonder if Daisy and then Harry could just sort of expand on that a little bit about how it felt for you both.
I've been thinking a lot about the time that we took over this whole process, and how that was quite a rare thing, but how each of us, I think both me and Harry as practitioners and everyone as participants, found that quite unsettling, having that freedom and having that time. And I've been thinking a lot about, like, why was that so uncomfortable? And I feel like there's so much pressure usually to be really productive with your time, and I feel like it's like the capitalist society in us jumping out and being like, but are we being efficient enough? Are we creating something that's good enough? Are we, like, you're judging? I was judging so much anyway, personally, the whole time, like, this, we spent too long on this. We haven't nailed down our exact point yet. But then it came to the actual day, and it was like Christmas had come. It was like the best day ever. Like, I swear I even blinked less because I was having such a good time. I was like, I just want to take everything in. That then you realise that that's a product of taking that scenic route, and that's something that's really rare and hard to come by now. And because you don't ever really get to do it as an artist, it feels really uncomfortable. But the end result is so worth it.
Thank you, Daisy. Harry, do you want to carry on from there?
Yeah, I think that was so true. That was so true, because me and Daisy as well would have so many conversations throughout, just kind of like a little bit like, where is this going? What are we doing? When you're kind of working towards a product with literally just no time scale and no idea of what that project's going to be or product is going to be, whether it's something that is going to be like, because there was a time where we're like, don't know how long lockdown will go on for. Is this something that they're all going to film on their phones? Are we going to send them equipment? Is there a budget for that? And all of these kind of, there was just so much uncertainty around it that it did feel quite intimidating. And I think, just as time went on and we solidified kind of someone to film and edit, Dan, and someone to work with as a visual kind of digital artist, and someone to kind of give a shared grounding in a choreographic and movement vocabulary, things kind of started to slot into place. But even so, like, even into kind of August, it was just still like, the idea of this creation day was an ethereal thing somewhere out there. And then all of a sudden it just came together so fast, and all of a sudden, we totally forgot that maybe some people would be going back to school and uni, because after like so long of everyone just being off, you forget that September is that month where that happens. And it was like all systems go, but it was just amazing how it picked up speed and momentum and energy, and there were some low points where it felt a little bit stuck. But just the turnaround, and then the day, like, I really can't, don't have the words for, especially after the year that everybody's had, how like cathartic it was to be in this room with all these people and filming this thing and watching it all unfold, quite literally multiple, like, infinite versions of it. And it's just beautiful, and I love how it's been truly collaborative, like no hierarchy, there's been no, just truly everyone's ideas have been valued and listened to, and it's just been a really quite unconventional but really positive way of working that I think I definitely take forward.
Thank you.
For sure.
And there's something about being stuck, isn't there?
Yeah.
And finding a way to get unstuck, which although it's difficult in the moment and perhaps slow, it brings something different to it.
And we had different roles on the project as well, so I was kind of purposely coming in as agent provocateur. So I was going, you could make another dance film, but why would you? And do you know about this? So I was coming into going, there is another way of working, and there's another way of understanding what digital is, and we can facilitate that. And by the way, have you come across any of these things? And like being the far-flung over here, and then Daisy and Harry going, cool, let's find the slightly less scary, but then the team finding their way through all of those different examples of everything from exoskeletons to 3D mapping stuff, to projection mapping, to like wearable sensors, like all of these things. Going, actually, it was the group, it was the Young Digital ReBels with Daisy and Harry facilitating, that found what they were fascinated by and what they wanted to create, and what the themes were that they were, these ideas of memory and water and buoyancy, and then what we did was just try to make that happen. So we'd taken a census of what everyone had in their house. We were figuring out whether or not we were going to be sending Pico projectors to everyone's places. We were trying to figure out how long the lockdown was lasting, whether or not we needed to kind of like send everyone silver foil to decorate their rooms so we can make their own sets. I mean, there were all kinds of conversations going on in the background of how do we, if we can never get together whilst this project is happening, how do we elevate this to the level that we know it can reach? And we were lucky that things had lifted just enough that we could go, actually, with this size of team, we can be in this space if we do it in a very COVID-safe way. Yeah. And that was an absolute bonus. But what we did then was make sure that it was still, like, our priority was, as you said, it wasn't, we were just facilitating it from this end, but it was so exciting to see how strong the ideas that were coming out of Young Digital Rebels and the team, and how everyone was really absolutely there to honour that and to support that. Yeah.
I think also on what you were saying about what did you say? Oh, about how kind of fortunate we were with the lockdown being lifted at the right time. I think there's really, like, it's got to be said that a digital creative process where you're just meeting on Zoom once a week is so grueling and so uninspiring. I don't know if anybody else agrees. Yeah, they're nodding. It's so difficult to keep the energy up, and I've found that actually across the board with Zoom, whether you're teaching or a participant in a class, it's so hard to keep the energy up, so hard to read other people's energies. You literally can't. It's just like a wall between you, and yeah, just not having that kind of, I find very much that when you're on Zoom and you kind of shut the laptop and you're in your kitchen and then you just slip back into your kind of home life, and without having your kind of creative process bleed into your conversations in more of a social setting, and the conversations you'd have after a rehearsal or before a rehearsal, and like without all of those kind of like excess things that are actually so fundamental, it does become quite, like, I don't know what the word is, but just very...
It needed that extra mix. It needed those extra bits. That's what, if we were to do it again, we'd make sure those bits were in there, potentially more frequently or more at the beginning, to just mark out some more momentum. Yeah,
I think that
I would say though that every time we spoke and got together, I got super excited.
Yeah, I think definitely like towards the kind of later stages of the project where things began to form up, of course, like excitement that we were talking about in the beginning when it was kind of real lockdown, and I think you could write a thesis on how to kind of add energy to that sort of thing.
Daisy, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was going to say that I feel like the Zoom boxes and the dancing in separate spaces is the biggest barrier when you're trying to set something physical. Like it's still difficult and it's still grueling when we were talking through ideas, or when we were learning different skills with the camera with Dan, or with the tech with Zack. That feels like it translates a bit clearer through that kind of setting. But when it comes to like setting physical content, it feels like Zoom is very much a coping mechanism. Like it will never replace the actual physical practice of doing it together. And that was quite a barrier to overcome, I think, for all of us, in terms of like setting dance content and sharing it. And every time you shared something, it feeling so flat and beige, and then trying to stay excited about something while it's being like squashed by this coping mechanism of like going through a screen. And I had a question about that to Ellie, because one of the first times we got together, and it was like we did a blended rehearsal at one point where we had Ella in the space, but Ellie in Brighton on a screen. And that was like the first little sliver of like feeling like a window opened for me, being like, this feels better to set something, because it somehow felt more cohesive. But I'm wondering if that was just because I was in the studio, or if you felt more connected at home, knowing that we were just 2 screens rather than 6. I would just wonder what it feels like to be on the other side of to not be in the studio space.
It was a little bit better, but I just for me, I think that was because of your energy and you know, Ella and Harry's energy, and I felt that a bit more. I still felt a little bit disconnected and a little bit disjointed, but it was easier to bounce off of and to sort of feel your energy. So it was better, definitely better, but not still nowhere near being in the studio altogether.
Cool, that's really interesting. Thanks.
I want to just move on finally to Dan before we throw questions out across the whole team and the whole room. Just Dan, I wondered if you might be able to talk about your experience of that collaborative process as a filmmaker, and whether this is something that you do quite often, or whether there was something different about this project.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Yeah, I would say this has been like one of the best projects in terms of pure collaboration for me for such a long time. And I think the reason that it works so well is how organic things came about. So a little bit of background with what I've done is I've done tons of dance myself in different tours around UK and Europe. So I know dance and I know how to capture the body as well. And I felt a little bit nervous, like coming into this project, because it's something that you have to see how this kind of video manipulation happens, as well as filming that happen. And equally, I found that the element of chance is huge in this. So everything that we've made has all been chance, in the sense of what's happening with the lighting, the movement, the improv, what I'm doing with the camera on my side. So having that trust within the team has just been so refreshing. I kind of, personally for me, you know, I fell out of dance because I felt uninspired, and that's a mega rant for another day. But it's projects like this that really make me remember why I love movement and why I love dance, and the people that I get to work with, and that collaborative effort of pure arts is exactly the reason that I do what I do. So it's just been such a phenomenal project to be a part of from the very beginning all the way to the very end. And yeah, absolutely blessed and grateful to be part of that collaborative energy.
I wonder if anyone on the board has got a question to us or the audience. Dan?
Yeah, so towards the very start, I think some of the feedback was that you wanted more. So from a filmmaking side and an editing side, I had hours and hours of footage to go through and sift through and change and manipulate. And from what you remember of seeing now, you know, from the very beginning of this talk, how long is too long? How long could you take that hypnotizing, mesmerizing kind of energy?
How long is too long?
It could be forever. So I don't know how many of you have been to the box yet.
Yeah.
And there's a video sound installation, and I could sit in rooms like that for hours just catching different things, and for years I've really enjoyed that element. I think when something has in a very short film loop, a beginning and an end, you sometimes don't have enough time to absorb. So it's almost that sort of, where is the beginning, where is the end? You can walk into it, you can walk out of it, you can continue to experience it, you can visit another time, you'll get a different sort of flavour. There was almost a sense that it was the start of an installation piece rather than the start of a film.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I have a feeling that with this type of, I mean, I was there and a part of it and felt like I could be there forever. And I have a feeling that the way the film was made, and sort of, it gave you a very true feeling of what it was like to be in that space, I think. And I believe that most people, given the opportunity to play like that, would just stay there for as long as they possibly could before they had to eat or like go to the bathroom or something like that. You know, it was I had the same feeling as that I could watch that forever, but I have a feeling that possibly it's because you maybe want to be a part of it, and it feels like you're almost a part of it, if that makes sense, in terms of the, again, visceral sort of experience of it. Is that but I was the one who kept demanding, just to let you know from the beginning, let's make something super short. No one wants to sit and watch dance or any videos for like 10 or 20 minutes or 5 minutes even. Let's make it 2 minutes or 1 minute or something like that. And they pushed it to, I think it's probably 2.5, 3 minutes or something. But I was definitely the one who you can tell off for making it short. But I like it that, you know, we always want you to want more. Because maybe we can come do it with you guys some again. Like that's definitely also one of the points.
And that's
anyone else got any responses to Dan's question? How long is too long?
I mean, if you make it like 5 minutes and have that on a loop, then you get to see more and more of it.
Yeah.
But if you just continue it so that there's no beginning, middle, and end, you won't see different aspects. You'll see always something new, but not of the same thing. Yeah. So it has pros and contras.
And I have another question which kind of follows on from that, which is that if this was an environment that we could set up that you guys could try, or we could run more workshops around and things, would you like in? Was this something that you would like to get your hands on as the kind of way of working, or as a set of tools to learn, or?
I'd love to learn how to do that feedback loopy thing.
Good.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's great about it. It's actually really quite simple, and it's really easy to play with.
I think my question was probably related to that, but from a different perspective. I spent hours, and certainly at the start for the lockdown, we were spending 12 to 18 hours a day in team meetings, all on Zoom, where you're trying desperately to read language, read rooms when you're not in there. What are the, and this is something maybe not to answer now, but to think about, how can things not in the dance world and not in the sort of creative industries world learn from the processes you've been through in creativity in terms of how we work in this new virtual environment? So how can we take the positives and put it into the work I do running the city? How can we make our thinking better? How can we make us more creative through having to interact through, at times, 20 screens? Because it can be tiring, but also, can we get the best? And I'm often worrying we're not getting the best, so you must have been doing that. So being able to learn some of those lessons and almost put those into something that other people can learn from would be, I think, in this environment, really encouraging. So the more you do, I suppose, the more you learn, the more you can, but it's actually sharing that so it's able to be used in other ways would be, I think, really interesting.
It's a good question, isn't it? Really good question. How we can put our learning into practice for other people in different scenarios in terms of using technology and having discussions and long conversations and long, thin projects that have to be in isolation. It's a great question. I don't have an answer to that right now, but
we're going to
really
enjoy figuring it out.
Throwing it open now for sort of other questions, either from everyone over here on the Celebrity Squares or from you lot about what we've heard.
One of the interesting things, just because there seem to be tumbleweeds, so I'm going to jump in on the tumbleweeds. One of the really exciting things, or one of the things I really loved about seeing as a process and seeing how the team worked, was everyone was straight away thinking about where else and how else and what else we want to do. So there were conversations about could this go into the new dome at the marketplace and be ported out so it's in 360, and you've got the camera on a roving rig, so somebody's following around, the dancer's in the centre, and then there's the audience, and then they're projected all around you. Could it be rock up and play and projected on the side of buildings in the cities. The dancers roll out of a van and there's a projector in the van, and it all, you know, is it done more formally for some of the festivals in the city? What's the next version? How do we create more choreographic material for it rather than just shorter sequences and improvised elements? You know, we did filming down on the Hoe.
Down by Tyneside,
yeah.
the bay.
And so that to me is like the sign of a really healthy project where where the ideas are really bubbling and everyone's thinking about what next and how does that team and how do those collaborators work. We're also really interested about its potential life as not a package is the wrong word, the wrong phrase, but
an experience for schools or colleges or universities to tap into, to create their own version of this. You know, whatever their outcome is would be really interesting. But to have a team of people that can come in and work with them on something, and to teach the teachers how to use it, or you know, the young people how to do it,
and to take that learning that we've all done as a collective around creating work between analogue and digital, and creating work in isolation and together, and how do you make that a non-hierarchical and a collaborative space and a creative space. And I'm very interested in you were saying about when both you and Daisy were saying about it being such a flat screen and how hard it is to choreograph it, and yet the freedom of movement you had in an echo of a flat screen based space. The interesting thing about the techniques of that feedback loop is that actually it is an infinite relationship with the screen and yourself. And yet in isolation that's a hard place, but in the room amongst it, when you have that visual and audio, that ability to fall into an environment, it was actually really exciting. And there's something about that which I think is brilliant.
It's kind of repurposing the screen.
Yes.
Finding new value, celebrating the screen in a different way. I'd like that question, what next? I wonder if we throw that out now. So what next? What do you think could happen next with this? Ellie, Daisy, Dan, what would you like to do with it next? As a sort of a final roundup. Feels like we're coming towards the end. Ellie, what next?
I think for me, I would like to try some of the many, many other ideas that we have. So, be it the suits, the body protection things, or all the other overwhelming amount of technology that was suggested, because it was so fun to even test it at the very start of the filming day, just to play with that technology, let alone create something so wonderful that it's just given me a little taste, and now I want more.
Dan, what next?
So for me, I would actually love to make a gallery at some point. So there's multiple films going on, and if we can get the same sort of feeling of video or photography, in the essence of chance of what we're creating, how we're creating, and also to have a little bit of an installation that people can do it in time, so everyone kind of benefits. I think that would be really cool.
Great. Daisy, what next?
I'm a bit biased because I'm a bit obsessed with installation type work anyway, but I'm imagining that we used like a dome space to make the projection like completely 360 immersive, but that we were working with a filmmaker, the digital and the dance, all at the same time as the musicians were, I think it would make an incredible DJ set that you could be in the middle of, and the musicians that made the music for these, Alexa and George. George actually does a bit of DJing, and I was speaking to him about it, and I was already imagining how cool would that be if somehow you could find a link to the music as well, to create another layer to just get a little bit deeper into that kind of cross collaboration.
That sounds great. It does remind me of some of my trippy rave days. In a really good way. Amazing. Anyone else want to talk about what next, Harry?
Like very much the same as Daisy. I would love to see it as a live installation where it's kind of like immediately fed back to the space with an audience that could potentially also mill around and kind of be part of it. And yeah, I'm loving the idea of the dome space.
And that
which we've spoken of, but
No, sorry, I was interrupting you.
But yeah, I think as a live installation and also as a interactive space that people could just have a go, like something that people can play around with. Because when I was saying that we were all in here like kind of screaming and like all of that, it was because it was such chance, like everything, you would just move the camera or you just zoom it in a little bit and someone would do some of the lights and all of a sudden the screen would just go and you would be like, oh my god, that's amazing. And it's just so by chance. And that feeling that I kind of had from that, like I would love for other people to experience that, maybe people who don't necessarily engage with the arts to experience that, because it's so just like grounding and cathartic and just like so many things all in one, which is literally what art is. So it's really, yeah, I'd love to share that experience.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you said earlier about it being sort of something that you could sit and immerse yourself in, but also depending on where an audience member sat, if they interacted accidentally with a light, or it would alter the colour of the space, and it would alter the kaleidoscope of the projection, and sort of even in a subtle way, the visitors or the audience are sort of changing things by chance, which I think is really fun as well, because you don't then have to feel like, oh, I'm a dancer and I can get up and move my body and interact, just being in the space.
Yeah, because it really doesn't. Sorry.
No, go for it.
No, I was just going to say it really doesn't have to be something that is only accessible to people with a movement background. You can literally do anything in the space. Multiple people, objects, anything. The more you add to it, just the more of a kind of world you'd create. So, yeah, I think that would also be a nice thing to explore.
Julius?
I was in Japan last year, and we booked this digital art museum tour, and in it they project all kinds of huge images onto walls, and you can touch them and they actually change color, or leaves fly away from your hand, and that is really impressive. And you can sit there for ages and walking around. And I'm not sure where it was, but there's this thing where you could be a composer and you were able to wave, what are they called? The sticks that they use.
I know what you mean, the composer's
Yeah. And the music would play to your speed, and if you didn't get it right, you would fail. So if you somehow combine the two, you get like something new.
Anyone else's imagination been sparked, or like imagining something else going on?
I think maybe one of the big challenges for all art, culture, creativity is to go beyond the norm. So not the traditional audience in the traditional space, and how it can change people's lives and perspectives. And less than a mile from here, we've got the very poorest part of Devon. And how do you change the lives of people in that community who've never come to a space like this and never think they could engage in art creativity? So it's actually how you begin to change a city through a creative impulse, which I know doesn't tie with national policy at the moment at all. But there's lots that the council's trying to do, but actually it needs lots more than that, and it needs to break beyond. So I'm sure lots of people go and think, as Honeybun in the Box, how many people go into St Luke's and enjoy the installation? And we need people to be able to do both. But I suppose with anything like this, it's how we get beyond the people who would normally be and think dances for me or contemporary dances for me, which is another whole phase, to something that actually begins to engage and inspire and give people a sense that there's something special here that the world could look at and admire.
Anyone from the board wants to add anything before we watch the film one more time? Ellie?
I was just thinking, listening to everything, one thing that I would like to see is children playing with it, because I just think if anyone was with us for the first half an hour at least, I had the best time. In fact, there's a small bit of video and I didn't realise I was being filmed, and I'm just like amazed with what's going on. I think I gave myself a high five on projection, and it was mimicked about 100 times, and I was having a great time. And I'm 22, so I think someone with crazy imaginations would just enjoy it so much.